Hello, everyone. So, this is going to be part two of the jump exercise. In this part, I'm going to be doing my fine tuning, and then I'm going to be splining and then later uploading. So, this is going to be a faster tutorial. The last one was a little bit on the longer side. I just want you to get the general idea of how you would approach this. So, as you can see, I don't really have my controllers on, so I'm just going to go to Show, click on Nerve Curves. I'm also using a new recording software, which will hopefully make it easier for those watching. Hopefully, you can see all of the windows that I'm now opening, and just hopefully overall, it's just easier to follow. So, luckily, I got some great notes from my students, and we were able to catch some mistakes, this being one of them. So, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly select all of my controllers right now, and I just want to see um, what my animation looks like. So, right here, I have this part where my character sticks, and then there's not really a satisfying landing. So, and this really happens in the matter of a couple frames. So, what I'm going to do is, so I'm going to land my character. Let me just watch this first and foremost. Let's watch this without the controllers, just so I can see what it looks like. All right, so already I'm looking at this, and the beginning is feeling really, really stiff. And it's because I don't have that spine really animated at all coming down. So there's not really anything to kind of prepare the audience into this next pose right here. I'm just kind of squatting, and then out of nowhere, I'm immediately coming down. So I'm gonna fix that, and your character should never be going down like that anyway. So I'm gonna fix that, and then the next thing I really want to fix is this hiccup right here, where I don't really have much going on, especially in this area right here. And then last but not least, my character just kind of gets up, and there's not really a satisfying kind of relaxed pose. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fix this hip controller. Let me go ahead and look at my editable motion trail. Go ahead and turn that on. Actually, I think I already have one. It's right here, my hip controller. So let me turn that on. Perfect. Now I can see my hip controller. Now, I really don't like how this kind of just immediately just bends down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to make this into more of a curve. And obviously, as I'm doing this, just becomes straight as well. And I don't want that either. So I'm going to kind of move that in a little bit. So I got more of a curve. And again, make sure you're on the right frame 26. Perfect. So I got a little bit more of a curve there. And as you can see, the spine's not really moving at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to look at my reference, and I'll share this reference in the description again. But just so you all know, the reference that I have is this one right here. So let me just quickly look at what the body does. So if I'm looking here, even as the reference is coming down, I can see that the spine is coming down as well. So what I'm going to do is go back to my reference. I'm sorry, go back to Maya. And as my character is coming down, I want to simply rotate this character forward a little bit. So remember, always, always, always have your reference handy. And already that's feeling much, much better because you're preparing the audience for this kind of squatting pose. So, and as you can see, I kind of got a C curve and an immediate S curve. So somewhere in between these frames, I'm definitely going to want to have an S curve in there somewhere. So, but before I do that, before I get too excited, I still want to fix my other major animation flaws. So right here, the character's feet should already be landed by this frame. Let's see right here. Yeah, so if I'm hitting this pose, really the feet should come down almost immediately after. So honestly, I feel like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frames is actually too long for the feet to come down. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to play with timing. And even if this timing is wrong, that's okay because I have all of my key poses down. I can easily move them wherever I want. And this is again the benefit of working in blocking. I'm able to move things around very easily without much concern. So as you can see, there's a concern right there. So again, I have to make sure that I have all of my keys selected. So let me hide my hip controller really quick, select all my keys, and this is where I can now move my character. So if I'm hitting this pose right here, I want this to land at about 2, maybe 3 frames at the most. So I'm going to move this over about 1, 2, 3 frames. And right here, I want my feet to come down immediately. So let me go ahead and just fix that. Let me find the rotation, call that a 0. Let's get this one, we'll set this one to 0 as well. And I'll have those toes come down as well. Maybe at one point, I'll have the toes just come up a little bit into this frame. But in the meantime, I want them to be flat right here. So let me go ahead and put this down as well. And another cool thing that you can do if you want to is you can copy actual controllers. So I'm going to copy this controller and I'm going to paste it. Oh no, that doesn't work. Never mind. I lied. So sometimes what I'm able to do is I'm able to just copy and then go to the next frame and then just paste. It worked that time. Okay, so I know what I did wrong. So quickly, all you have to remember is go onto the actual frame that you want to replicate. You're going to copy the keyframe, and then you're going to go to the keyframe where you want it to copy to, and then you're just going to simply paste that down there. And now that I've got that, let me make sure that this foot is landed down all the way. I can see that it's just slightly smidged. So make sure that's good. Sorry, it's the Y I want to change. There we go, perfect. So now I've got that landing. So I've got that. And this is a pose that I wanted to push further as well. And if I'm coming down, my hips should not be straight up. So again, I'm going to look at my reference really quick, and let's just see what our person does. So let me go back. Okay, so again, character's coming down. They're jumping up. As you can see, they've got a really gnarly C curve right there. Now, this is a different reference. The one I was using is actually on, I think, second number 6. So I'm using this reference to kind of exaggerate what my character is doing. And as I can see, even as we're coming up, our hips are rotated down ever so slightly, and then they come up. So I want to replicate that in my animation, so I'm going to go here, and I'm going to rotate this forward. And already this feels significantly better. So if I were to, again, go back and forth, you can see that, again, by following the reference, I'm able to get an even stronger pose. So let's go back into a bit of a C curve here. Backwards. It's still kind of a C here, but I want to get into that resting pose. And I'm just going to quickly look at my motion trail for the hip. Look at that really quick. And what I actually want to do is, so my character comes here. I want to have, even if it's a very, very subtle curve, I want my character to kind of settle back into place. So I'm just going to make a really, really subtle curve here. And then I'll just kind of move this forward a little bit. Again, my timing is completely off, by the way, if you look at my timeline. So, but that's okay. Again, I can always play with that a little bit. So now, if I were to play this, let's just turn off the nerve curves and the hip. I should get a little bit more organic landing. And already, just that kind of subtle landing feels much, much better. So it feels more like a rest. However, again, I'm focusing on the hips first before I even touch the spine. Now that I have the hips in here, I would now play around with the spine. So I've got this looking much better, so you know where the character's going. Again, I want to add kind of an S-curve between these two C's. Coming here, I've fixed the feet a little bit. I'll probably end up fixing that little lift right there. And I definitely want this foot to come forward a little bit more because it just kind of goes forward out of nowhere. And then last but not least, I've got my landing, and I'll fix the spine a little bit on that. So those are the last things that I'm going to do, and then I'm going to spline this for the sake of speed. But now you can kind of understand where I'm going from here. I'm constantly fine-tuning. I'm constantly looking at different things that I can fix within my body mechanics. So let's go down the line. I'm going to add an S-curve here. So again, I'm going to be using the grease pencil to kind of help guide how I want this pose to go. So let me go ahead and go here. Let's see. So this is the pose I'm starting with. And my hips are coming forward. And my head is coming forward as well. So what I want for this is I want my hips to really guide. So I'm going to start here. And then this is going to drag. So if I'm in this pose, I want to kind of drag my character. And again, I've got a little bit of an S right here to help guide me. So I'm going to go back to my controllers. And I'm going to try to follow this to the best of my ability. And worst case scenario, you know, if this pose is too far, that's okay. There's no problem with that. I just want to make sure that I'm trying to at least adhere to an S-curve. So even if my S-curve is dramatic, at least I'm able to kind of help it guide me. So there we go. And already that's a much smoother transition. Now, the most difficult transition, obviously, is that my hips are not moving at all. So again, something to keep in mind. Let me fix this curve a little bit again. Got my S in there. Perfect. All right, that's already feeling better. Now, of course, again, I need to move this this hip, otherwise it's going to be stunted. You're going to give a poppy effect. I don't want that pop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my hip controller, or my hip motion trail, and let me just see and see if I can split the difference for my hips. And as you can tell, the grease pencil is kind of following me. So let me go back to the grease pencil, and let me see if I can delete just the grease pencil. Perfect. Okay, I've got that. So now I'm going to go back over here, and I don't want that popping sensation. So what I'm going to do is move my character down even further. even more. So I'm actually going to push this back a little bit more. And already that's feeling so much more smooth. So again, the importance of C curves and S curves, don't forget it. It's going to make your in-betweens a lot smoother and less blocky. So that S is to basically ease you in to a new pose. And as you can tell, it makes it so much smoother. So we've got that. Next thing I'm going to do is go over here, fix this weird kind of pop that I have on the feet. So let's go ahead and quickly fix that. Again, I don't know why my Y translate was set to there, but I'm going to go ahead and fix it. So now I don't have that random pop up and down on that foot. The next thing I want to do is like this foot just kind of like moving randomly without being motivated. So I feel like this foot would at least move forward even just a little bit here. So I'm going to, again, look at timing and spacing. This should be easing in. Or if anything, it'll speed up and it'll slow into this pose, which actually makes more sense to me. So let's just do that. So, if anything, let me just play around and see what this last pose would look like. Can I move this foot forward a little bit more? No, not without moving this forward. So if I really wanted to, I could fix this even more and kind of really adjust my feet a little bit so that I feel the impact of the foot coming forward. And that feels like a pretty good spot, so. But you know what? I'm not gonna get too excited about that because again, I'll be sitting here and animating forever. So for the sake of simplicity, let's just kind of ease this foot in. So I'm coming here and I'm staying there. Again, I want my foot to almost already be there by the time I get to this pose. So let me just make a quick motion trail and see how much closer I can get. Or better yet, let me look inside the graph editor and see where I'm moving on, I believe the the Z axis. So I'm coming here, I'm looking at this. I want my foot to be almost close. I want to favor this side. That way you can feel the foot kind of slowing down. There we go. And that already feels much better. Again, I'm not looking at the reference for this. I'm feeling the animation out. So already that feels like a smoother transition. And again, I'm telling Maya exactly what I want. Because if I was left up to my own devices, Maya would decide to ease into this frame. Or even on the landing, it will sometimes try to ease in. So I don't always want that. I want to tell Maya exactly what I want. So now that we have that, kind of ease into that pose. I actually want to fix the hips a little bit now that I'm looking at this character. So I'm going to go into my graph editor and I'm moving on the Z. And I honestly want this to come forward a little bit along with all of the other poses. So rather than going frame by frame and manipulating this, I'm just going to go into the graph editor. And I'm going to move this up a little bit. And already that feels like a better pose. If you'll remember, again, one of my favorite mentors learning animation from, Karina Kingdom has in the past used this analogy and it's been helping me ever since. If you could put your character on a skateboard and if it looks like your character is going to slip or fall off the skateboard, then you're definitely going to want to readjust your hips so that it looks correct. And the easiest way to do that is just to go to the top view, look at your character, and if you look at my character, yes, they're pretty close to even. I would actually want my character to be a little bit more up front. So looking at this, I'm going to select this, and I'm going to drag this until it feels correct. So again, let me go ahead and select this really quick. Let me move this forward, and that feels good right there. So if this character was on a skateboard, I would have confidence that they were probably going to not slip off the skateboard. So now that that feels good, and I'm coming back to a very similar spot, let's go ahead and look at my left view again. And yeah, that already feels a little bit better. So let me go ahead and... Okay, so I've got this. That feels like a relatively nice settle. And the last thing I'm going to do is do a very subtle spine treatment on the character as they're going into a rest. So again, I'm looking at the physics of this. If the body's coming forward, then my spine is probably coming back a little bit, which it already is. Now, if my spine is coming backwards, then my spine is probably going forward a little bit. So again, I'm going to go down to the pixels. If you want to increase the size of your controller right here, your cog, you just press the plus button. And then it's much easier to give kind of more subtle movements and treatments. So let's see. Perfect. And as my character's coming back even further, let's see what frame that is. So on this frame, my character's coming down even more. So my character is going to be as well coming down forward a little bit. Remember on this frame. And another thing that I want to do is, as you can tell, not all of my keys are set. I'm missing some keys here. So I don't want that. I want to avoid that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hide the motion trail again. And I'm going to select all of my keyable controllers. And I'm going to press S on all of the red markers that I see. So that I know with confidence, worst case scenario, at least all of my keyable controllers are all keyed on these frames. So again, I'm just going to go down the line, quickly, pressing S, 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 and then last but not least, S. So now I know with confidence, doesn't matter how many times I move all of these controllers, I know for a fact that all of my controllers are going to be on this key, so I'm set. And there's nothing getting animated in between, which is good, which is what I want. So now that I have that, now look, when I click on the spine, I know exactly where all my keyframes are. So I don't have to keep coming back to the spine to see what's moving and what's not moving. So perfect. I want this to come down even further. And then as my character is not coming forward, then my character's spine is going to be easing back into rest. And I can just kind of rotate that back a little bit. Ever so subtle treatment. So now that I'm looking at this, I've got a little bit of a popping motion. And I want to avoid that pop, so I'm just going to adjust it ever so slightly. So I've got this. As I'm coming up, I want to say that my hips are kind of rotated down probably a little bit more because I'm coming up. And now that I'm coming back, my hips are coming back, I don't want my character to be moving in front of this spot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate the head so I'm at least moving back in space. Perfect. So as you can tell, there's a huge difference where like this feels better, but this feels like a pop. Again, because my character is moving backwards in space, but for some odd reason their head is moving forward. and already that's feeling much, much better. So something to keep in mind. Uh, oh man, that's awesome. Sorry, I love animation. So there's still some things that I would absolutely fix about this, but for the sake of this demo, I would say that this is done. Now, in a perfect world, I would actually send this to one of my mentors and be like, hey, I need some feedback on this. Can you give me some advice? There's a lot of things that I would still fix about this, however. But again, for the sake of the demo, I feel like you all get the idea. So, wow, this landing doesn't feel satisfying enough for me. I would have that character jump forward furthermore. But again, this is something that I'll do in my spare time. So now that I have this, I'm going to go ahead and turn off my nerve curves so I can render this out really quickly. I'm going to go into my, let's see, my new render camera that I've created. A tutorial for that will be coming up soon on how to do this. But you can easily go to, let's see, panels, look through selected, make sure that you have your selected camera selected, look through selected, and this is the render cam that I'm going to be rendering from. So, and again, just to make sure that I have everything in the place that I want it, I can simply grab this, and if I shrink this down, I can see exactly what's going to be in my render camera. So everything inside this box is what's going to be rendered. I like the composition, looks okay. And now that I feel like this animation is cleaned up, I will now go into splining and I will clean up my tangents. Let me go ahead and do that. The render cam looks good, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that off for now. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up my animation. So to do that, again, everyone, please, please, please remember, before you begin to clean up your animation, save your animation. So I'm going to save as. Let's see, this is in my animation folder, which I have called jump. I set the work file folder. This is going to be jump number 4. And if it's easier for you, you're more than welcome to do jump cleanup. That way you know exactly which file is going to be the one that you used before you started to do cleanup. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. Again, you're more than welcome to do that, just, for your own benefit. So now that I have that, I am now comfortable and confident with screwing around with my animation. The first thing I want to clean up always is my hip controllers. So let's go ahead and make this smaller. Okay, perfect. So now that I have that, I am going to select all of my controllers with the exception of the bottom control. And I'm going to select all of the graph editor. I'm going to go to Auto Span or Auto Tangents Legacy. Click on that. And the next thing I want to make sure that I'm doing is I want to make sure that my animation preferences are set to Auto Span as well. So right now it's on flat and stepped, which is how I work when I am starting an animation. But I want to go to Auto Span Legacy now. So now anytime I move anything or I animate anything, it's going to be auto span. So I don't have to worry about this blocky effect that's going to happen. And I'll just show you what that would look like hypothetically. So if I were to hypothetically go to flat and stepped, and I just want to show you, so if this ever happens to you, you'll know why. So we've got this, and as you can see, we've got this gnarly kind of, oh yeah, this is the stuff I live for. So this really gnarly, weird stuff that's going on right here. So let me quickly set this to stepped just to see what's going on really quick. So another thing with Maya is a lot of it's like troubleshooting, making sure that things are working correctly. So everything looks right. Go into auto span for everything. Not entirely sure why it's doing that. Let's check again. Not sure why that step's still. Oh, Maya. So, you know what? I would say that I would pause the video here, but you know, this is a great example of if this doesn't work out, worst case scenario, I can go back to my previous save, but let me see if I can try to troubleshoot exactly what's going on here. So, it looks like it's still unstepped, especially for the hips. So let me just select the hips. That looks good. How about the waist? That also looks good. You know what I'm going to do? Let's just hypothetically do this. So for this assignment, I did not make my own layer controller. But you know what? I think I'm going to do that now. Oh, also, looks like I have some duplicates here. Do I have some duplicates? Let me just see what happens if I delete this. Can't delete that. That's so weird. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to select my controllers, and I'm going to add them to a layer. This is something that I've done in the previous video, but it's something that I personally like to do, so it's easier for me to select my controllers. So I've got that saved. Now what I'm going to do is I'm basically just going to add all of these controllers to my controller window. And all you have to do is select objects, add selected objects. So I'm turning off the V, the visual, so that I know if I can't see it, it's definitely in my layer. The other thing that you can do is once you perform that action, you can just press the G key and it'll replicate the last action that you made. So I'm just going to go down and just keep selecting G, 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 and G. All right. And I don't need those keys. So now you can see that I have my selected controllers. I am going to select said controllers. You know what? I'm actually going to delete all the keyframes on this one. I don't need those. So let me cut those. All right, so I don't know what the hell I did, but I just fixed it. I think maybe it was because of the foot controllers, maybe. But as you can see, again, like, oh man, this landing is not to my satisfaction. I'll fix that later at a different time. But you understand the cleanup method now. Oh, and the timing of this is terrible. Okay, you know what? I'm sorry, I can't do this. I need to fix this. So, again, the cool thing is because I have all my keyframes set, I can now move these closer together. So this just feels really, really slow. So I'm going to select all of my keyframes here. And you know what? Screw it. This is part of the animation process. Sometimes when you find yourself in auto, you're like, oh man, this is not the timing that I want. And then this should come down much, much faster. So let me get the timing for this. Squeeze that down a little bit. That feels good. The timing of this still feels slow. So I'm going to move this back. And again, there's no shame in fiddling around with your timing. And again, the reason for this is like at the end of the day, The only thing that really matters is does it feel right? So this still feels really, really slow. I'm going to make that even faster by moving it down. So let's quickly play that. And as you can feel, this is extremely slow as well. So let me go ahead and move the timing of that. Again, the benefit of working this way is now I can feel the timing of my animation. So let's go ahead and play that again. This also feels like a really slow impact. So I'm going to make this even faster as well. And even if I just look at the timing and the spacing of this too, let's just check this out. So yeah, it just feels so slow. Oh my gosh. It's ridiculous. As you can see, it's actually easing in, and I don't want that at all. So, you know what? I'm just gonna crunch all of these down. I'm gonna make this. I might make this even a frame. So let me move this down. Let me move these keyframes down. And actually, that's already feeling much better. So let me play this again. I'm gonna play this with other controllers. Just a heads up, we're in that zone where I'm like looking at things with my laser eyes, and so if I don't talk, it's because I'm just laser focused on the timing and the spacing of this. So I'm just gonna watch this objectively. Honestly, I'm just gonna watch it objectively. I'm gonna take a step back and I'm gonna play this and just kind of assess what feels weird. So as I'm watching this, coming down feels too fast. The action of the jump doesn't do much justice to the landing. And when I finally land, it feels too quick, especially on the spine. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to reopen my scene. Don't save this. And I'm going to, again, very quickly just add my controllers again. And I'm going to save it again because, again, worst case scenario, if I mess up and if I don't like this, I can always, always, always go back to a save where I have my controllers all in one place. So I'm just going to go controllers, fix that, save. I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to select this one. I'm going to add selected objects, go down the line, G, 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 select these, select that, select this one, that one, this one, and that's it. I'm going to save this. So worst case scenario, I can always come back to this scene. Let me play this out. So even as I'm looking at this, I'll play this again. This feels incredibly slow. This should feel like a launch, just like the bouncing ball. So I'm going to look at that. And really what I should be looking at is ultimately the hip controller. So let me go ahead and turn that on. Okay, so what I'm basically saying is that in the span of 1, 2, 3, 4 frames, they're going to get to this point. That feels a little slow to me. So I'm going to scrunch that a little bit. Get a few frames. Oh, okay, again. You want to make sure that all your controllers are selected. You'll have that situation that I just did. So let me go back to showing the NERP controllers. Let me go back to my channel box. Again, thank you all for your patience as you're watching this, as I fiddle around, but this is the reality of animation. It's seldom extremely smooth. Sometimes it's troubleshooting. So we'll troubleshoot together. Okay, so now that I have this, I'm going to select all objects, all the objects that I want to be animated. Let me just delete all of these, by the way, so it doesn't mess up my animation. Let me also make sure that I am in stepped. Okay, yes, perfect. That's good. So now that we have that, that already feels better. Still feels slow though, so I'm going to go back to the hip. Again, same thing. This is happening in 5 frames, so let me squish that down a couple frames. I did it again. Make sure you have all your controllers selected before you do this. So I'm going to select all my controllers. And now I'm comfortable moving my animation because I know that all the frames have keyed controllers. So we got that. So let's go ahead and play this again. Okay, this also feels like it takes too long. So I'm going to shrink this. And again, just like I was saying, I'm deliberately working this way because I know that it's so easy to get distracted when Maya is in betweening everything for me. I want to develop my eye to be able to see the timing when it isn't blocked. That way, and it's a very weird phenomenon, but I don't know if you've ever experienced this. When you look at your animation for too long, your brain starts to try to convince you that it's right, even when it's wrong. So your brain is like, there's something wrong about this. Let me switch the way my brain is observing this so that it looks more correct. Your brain will literally trick you all the time when it comes to animating. So keep that in mind. Don't trust your brain always. All right, so let's go ahead and play this again. So this feels okay, but I feel like we've got a little bit too long of a hang time. So let me just go ahead and squeeze that in. Couple frames. Play that again really quick. Again, so this feels, again, it makes sense though, because my frames are just kind of hanging out here for a bit. So I definitely want to squish this. I want to squish this. Play that again. And then this is kind of feeling a little slow. So this happens in 2 frames. And this happens in 2 frames. Which actually makes sense to me. That feels like a speed up. But this is a slow down. We don't really want that, so believe it or not, I might actually delete that frame altogether. I'm gonna delete it. Bye. Let me cut that. Oh my god, see? So sometimes you might actually delete some frames. I didn't need that frame. It was holding me back. So now that I have it gone, this is already beginning to feel like a better animation. So again, there's no shame. Like I'm literally deleting all that work that I just did. I don't care. As long as the animation looks good at the end of the day, that's all that matters to me. So, oh my gosh, already that feels significantly better. Okay, so let me play this. That feels good. Now, there's still some weirdness in the beginning, but this feels good enough for me to put into splining. So, awesome. Actually, this was a great exercise. You just witnessed me looking at my animation and saying, you know what? This doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel good for me. And even though it's easy for me to be like, hey, you know, whatever, let me just teach you how to auto spline this. I also want you to learn the principles of animation first and foremost. That's the most important thing for these demos and exercises, to learn the principles of animation. So now that my timing feels better, I am far more confident about splining this animation. So what I'm going to do is, again, save scene as. We'll call this 5. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these bad boys. I'm going to make them autoed. I'm going to go into my animation settings, make sure that I am in auto span for both. Weighted tangents as well. Save that. And let's just see what it looks like. So let me turn off the nerve controllers. Let me hide my hip motion trail. And let's just play this. All right, still a little stiff, but I do feel much better about the timing of this. This feels better to me. So this is going to be good enough to spline for me and do some cleanup. Let's go ahead and do some cleanup. So the first thing I want to do is, again, make sure you're saved. I've done that, so we're good. I'm going to save again. Just save as, and instead of cleanup, I'm going to call this auto or spline, whichever you choose. Doesn't matter as long as you know what's what. So jump spline, and we'll call this number 6. So now I know from here on out, I am going to be splining my character. So first thing I want to do is let's check out the z-axis. Looks like we have some really stiffness here. You know, just for fun, sometimes I like to see what the actual axis is doing. So it looks like it's just me moving back and forth. Not really a huge deal. In a perfect world, I would actually manipulate this further, just for fun. You probably shouldn't do this. Let me look in the front view just to see what I'm doing exactly. Okay, so just so you know, on this angle, I'm moving my character back and forth. I do not like having a perfect line, so for this pose especially, I'm just going to mess around a little bit and maybe have my character kind of move to the side, perhaps. And that's just going to make it a little bit more dynamic. And by the time my character comes here, they're coming up. You know, just to make it more interesting, maybe I'll delete these keys and I'll just move this one up a little bit so my character kind of goes back into this neutral pose. And yeah, so that's incredibly weird. Don't do what I'm doing now. I'm literally just doing this for fun. But anyway, let's go back to the actual view that we're going to be animating from. So again, you can see it doesn't really make any of a difference. It's really just for personal taste, for dimensions sake. But if I were really to clean this up, this looks too much. Yeah, it's just not a good arc. So if I were to make this a clean arc, that's what I would do instead, making sure my arcs are smooth. So let's actually look at something that will make a difference. This one right here. So if I'm coming down like this, looking at this right here, there are some of these that I don't think I need. Now, this is where you definitely want to save. So I'm going to save scene. So I'm saving on the spline. Now, this is where I'm going to go tangent by tangent, frame by frame, and I'm going to see that change if I delete something. Is it going to make a difference in the animation? So let's just see what happens if I delete this. A little change. Is it a drastic change? Not really. It's not that big of a difference, actually. So let's put that back. If I were to get rid of that, nothing really changes. So what if I get rid of this one? Oh, hardly a change at all. So I can get rid of those frames with confidence, knowing that I didn't really need them. It's not going to make a huge difference in the animation. Here's another one. I don't feel like it's going to make a huge difference. No, hardly any difference at all. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that one. Oh, let's go to the translate Z. So now that I'm here, I don't feel like I need this one. Let's see what happens if I were to delete it. So this is actually forcing my character to stay forward a little bit. So if I delete that, I'm actually adding a little bit more fluid motion forward, and it makes the character feel more alive. So again, I'm going down frame by frame, trying to figure out and pick out like what I do and don't need. How about this one, for instance? Do I need this one? So if I keep this one, my character rolls forward a little bit, but if I delete it, there's a little bit more of a delay, and it kind of gives me more anticipation for that jump. That actually feels better in my animation. So now what I'm doing is I'm going into the fine, minute details of what would make this animation feel better. Sometimes Maya is obviously going to do things better. So sometimes I'll defer to Maya, but I'm telling Maya it's okay if you change my animation because I know the computer's making it feel better. I'm consciously looking for what's going to make the animation feel better. So let's just see what happens. Hypothetically, I feel like I need this one, but I just want to see what's going to happen. Yeah, I need that. I need this frame because it makes the jump feel more impactful. So let's just hypothetically see what happens if I delete this one. See how much slower that feels now. But, you know, if I play this, it feels more fluid, but it's far less dynamic. So if I'm playing this again, yeah, I actually want to keep that one. I might actually change this one, though. Let's see what happens if I delete that one. No, I need that one, too. So, again, I'm going down, just seeing what I need and don't need. This one, I don't feel like I need at all. Hardly makes a difference. It actually makes it smoother without it. How about this one? Let's just see what happens if I get rid of that one. So that makes it feel a little bit too springy for me. No, I don't want that to go. So again, I'm going down line by line, seeing what I do and don't need. Yeah, didn't need that one either. Okay, perfect. So now you get an idea of what I'm doing. So I'm just going to go quickly down the line, looking through my rotations. I don't need this. If anything, I might want to manipulate this a little bit. Let's see what happens here. So I actually want the character to kind of rotate ever so slightly up. So I'm going to lift this a little bit so you can feel the character preparing to get into that pose. And you know what? I'm actually going to try to split the difference on this one, where I'm going to lift this up a little bit higher. And already that feels much better. So now I'm getting into my actual controllers to manipulate them to make them feel even better. So right here, we've got flat. We don't want that. So I actually kind of want this to propel upwards, like so. And I want this to come up more. Sorry, I'm like looking at my animation frame by frame. Sometimes I do that. If I don't talk for a hot like 5 to 10 seconds, it's because I'm literally looking at things frame by frame. So I actually don't like that. Let me see what happens if I were to not touch this. I'm still getting that hiccup, so yeah, let's fix it. So again, as I'm animating, I'm always looking like, okay, what would make this feel better? So I feel like my hip would come up here, at the very least. And it would come up more like so. It would not come down, it would be coming like this more. Let me just see what happened if I were to delete these two. That actually feels better. So see that? I literally just deleted 2 frames that would drastically change my animation. But I'm just seeing what it looks like. What would it look like if I were to delete these weird, janky frames? If I delete them, it actually looks much, much smoother. So I'm going to save that. Save as. That way I know when I come back to this, worst case scenario, I'm like, okay, well, at least I've got that spline cleaned up. So I've got that. Now we're getting into some more janky looking frames. So this is a flat tangent. Let's see what would happen if I delete that. Let me see what would happen if I delete this one. Nothing really happens, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. What would happen if I deleted this one? Not really much of anything. And then we get a nice gnarly kind of come up. And so yeah, this is actually feeling pretty good. I like this. Let me do this last one right here. Let's see what happens if I delete that one. Smooth operator. Awesome. So this feels good to me. So let's see. Last one I got. Let's see. What the hell did I do here? This should not do anything. Nope, it does not. It's because I'm in orthographic view. Same with this one. This should also not do anything. Nope, nothing. Cool beans. Awesome. So wait, do I even need this one? Let's see what happens if I delete it. Oh, nope. So again, if I don't need this tangent, I'm just going to get rid of it. Cool. All right, that's good. Now, last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly go down the spine. I feel like you all get exactly what I'm doing. I'm just going to go down the spine. I think I'm just on the rotate X. So let me quickly go here. Let's see what happens if I delete this. Does that make it feel better? Let's find out. So I've got it here. If I were to delete this, it would take longer for me to get into this pose, which might be a good thing because I'm slowing down as I come down here. That feels okay to me, so I'll let that stay. What happens if I get rid of this one? So if I were to delete this frame, my character comes down a little bit more. And if they come down a little bit more, they have more of a projection to come up. I kind of like that. Let's keep that. Let's go to this one. What happens if I delete this one? Character comes up more. I want that actually. Let's see. What happens if I delete this? Nothing. What happens if I were to delete this one? Nothing. So I don't need that one. Let's come down here. Do I even need this one? No, I don't. Not really. Not at all. So now my character is now moving more fluid throughout the frames. So let me go to the next one. Just select the X. Let's see, do I need this one? No, not really. Oh, this one. Nope. I probably will need this one. No, I don't need that one either. It actually looks even better. So how about this one? Nope, don't need that one either. Oh, this one. Let's see about this one. No, I don't need that one either. That actually feels better without it. Last but not least, that does nothing. Okay, perfect. Cool. All right. So now that I've got that one, let me do my last spine controller. Again, quickly go through here. Let's see what happens if I were to delete this one. Oh, that feels even more smoother, so I'll get rid of that. This is a flat tangent, so let's see what happens if I were to delete that. I don't want that, actually. I kind of want that there. I want that. I want that drag on the body, so I'm going to keep that. Now, what happens if I were to delete this one? So that eases into the pose much easier. As you can see, it looks smoother on the arc, and it looks even smoother on the animation. So I'm actually going to keep that. Now that I'm here, what do I want this tangent to do? Yeah, actually having it drag a little bit more feels better. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. That feels better. My transition's much smoother. Let's see what happens if I were to delete this one. Not much of a big difference. The character is rotating forward, but if I delete that frame, it could become even smoother, but I actually want it to hang back even more, so I'll keep that there. How about this one? Let's see what happens if I delete this one. Nothing happens. Go down the line. How about this one? Nothing happens. That looks good. How about the neck? Let's go to just the x-axis. So this is more subtle animation. As my character is coming forward, I'm actually going to want my neck to come back a little bit. So what would that look like if I'm rotating back ever so slightly? Let's just see what would happen if I were to get rid of this. So that actually feels pretty cool. I like that. That feels like a much smoother transition than if I were to just kind of had my head bank. And it keeps my character's eyes on their target a bit more. And I actually kind of want this head to look down. So I'm going to manipulate that. Manipulate that further. Want that head to look down even more. And I actually want this head to kind of look up in that area. So now I'm looking at what I want my character to do. I'm not necessarily looking at the timing and the spacing. That's already been done. I'm fine-tuning exactly what I want my character head to do. So I'm thinking logically in my head, if I'm landing, I definitely want to see where I'm landing. So I'm going to look down. And, you know, just hypothetically, if I were to look at this reference again, let me just go ahead and... So right before they come down... Yes, absolutely. They're looking at where they're landing. That feels right to me. So again, I'm going to go back to my animation and make sure that that's executed well. And now that I have that, again, I want my character to kind of pull their head up a little bit more. So that feels much, much better. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Again, there's like literally nothing happening here. So, let me just have this head come down a little bit. And I'll just kind of make that even smoother. And let me get rid of that. Cool. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Let's see what happens if I get rid of that one. Not much. And I've got these random frames where nothing's really happening. So if I were really to have this character come up, I want their head to really come up more, especially right here. Or even more so here. So I'm going to dial that down. Let's see what happens if I delete the rest of these frames. So I want this to be more subtle. So what I'm going to do is have that there. Yeah, that feels much better. Cool, cool, cool. Awesome. And then last but not least, I'm going to mess around with the head controller. Let's see what we've got here. Nothing's happening. Let's just see what happens if I delete that. Again, nothing's happening. So I kind of want my head to rotate back a little bit. So I'm just going to have this come down here. So I'm going to ease into that pose. That looks cool. I just want to see what happens if I were to delete that for fun. No, I kind of want the head up. Let's see what happens if I delete this one. Okay, let me go down to this one. Again, hypothetically, sorry, I just deleted that without even showing what it does. Nothing, it does nothing. So I'm getting rid of it. I don't want it there. So let's see what happens with this one. Okay, this feels like a much smoother head to me. Let's see what happens if I were to get rid of that. Okay, that feels like a much smoother head transition. So when I keep this, it's just kind of stuck there and it's stiff. But if I get rid of it, then it becomes an eased in head. So now that I've got that, let's see what happens if I were to get rid of this. Coming down, that feels like a much smoother landing in. So I'm just going to see what happens if I delete that one. Perfect. So that's a much smoother transition. Let's just see what happens if I got rid of that one too. That is also a much smoother head transition. So last but not least, let me get rid of this one. And that's kind of a more exaggerated back pose. But if I were to do that, I would want to hold this pose for longer. Let me just see what that looks like if I were to play this without my nerve controllers. Play that out. Yeah, that still feels way too quick. So I'm going to keep that there. And if I play this again, that's a really quick whip up. So if I were to play around with the timing of this again, I would play around with that. For the sake of the demo, I'm not going to touch it any further because we'll be here forever. But again, that's something to keep in mind as well. So now that I have that, let me go back to my nerve controllers. And again, I still want my head to move a little bit. So as this is coming back, this is now rotating forward a little bit more. I'll definitely have the character rotate the head down more by this pose. And then they'll kind of, no, I don't want that. Let's see what the other way does. Oh, perfect. That feels like a much smoother transition. So I'm going to keep that. Let me just get rid of this one. Perfect. Awesome. So this is basically the extent of my cleanup. And again, I would definitely not say that this is ready by any means. I would go back. I would get feedback way back into my my stepped view first and foremost. So once you have the confidence of knowing that your stepped view looks good and your stepping plus looks good, then I would go to a mentor or someone else and be like, hey, can I get some feedback on this before I go into splining? And usually having another pair of eyes will help you catch timing and spacing especially. So yeah, that's it. So now that this is done, I'm going to turn off the nerve curves. I would render this out. There's already a tutorial on how to do that, but let me quickly play this so that you can all see. This is how I would approach a jump animation. And again, of course, there's plenty of things to fix. I'll upload this to the Sync Sketch, so you can go ahead and give some critique to this, but I would consider this done for the sake of the demo. If you were to do the assignment like this I would say is an A+ to me. So thank you for watching. I hope this helps, and yeah, happy animating.